Hey all, Ed here, community leader persona, and this is personally our community podcast. So today I spoke with Rojay Simpson. Rojay is a product guy and he's based in Jamaica and he's building Giftme. Giftme is an online gifting system, but it's the first time he's trying to build this in Jamaica. Actually, one of his founders found this happening a lot in Europe and US, and he was like, well, can I try and implement this in Jamaica? Will I be able to do this physically? They're like, maybe it's a challenge, let's try this online. And they're actually going through a lot of things because it's not as easy and simple as building this in the US or Europe. So it's pretty good to hear this and get different perspectives from someone building this in a different country with different regulations, different systems, with no open banking. So there's a lot of really good things that he's sharing. And yeah, if you want to connect with Rojay, I'll make sure to leave his information below. So Rojay, thank you so much for being here, man. Great to talk to you again. And I would love to maybe get started by hearing more from you. Like, I mean, who is Rojay? Tell me a little bit about who are you? What do you do?
Thank you for having me, Ed. I really appreciate this. So let me speak about myself. I grew up in Jamaica. I was born in England. My parents are Jamaican. I grew up in a small farming community, so to speak. So technology wasn't at the forefront. I joke about this now with friends and so, but like in reality, I was supposed to become a farmer or a carpenter like my dad or a tradesman or something of the sort. So what happened was that my best friend had a computer and we went to the same school. So in the afternoons, I used to go and play on the computer, I used to play FIFA and Mortal Kombat. And I started becoming fascinated with computers, like how do they work? Because I always like to take apart things, so to speak. And so I went home and I said to my dad, I want a computer, and he got me one. And I started from there. And initially what I started doing was I got some emulators and I kind of like played around with them. Back then I didn't have internet. My best friend, he had dial-up. So this is a long time ago. And so I kind of searched the internet a bit. Granted, I was a child, and learned a few things and hacked the emulators so I could play the games better. Fast forward now, in high school, I bought my first T230 Sony Ericsson. Very old phone, 2003, 2004.
Did you actually know the computer, what you were getting at that time? Because I remember, like, same as you, I had an opportunity to have someone put a computer in front of me, but I was probably the worst kid ever because I didn't bother. I was like, I know I'm going to continue my setting fire on my G.I. Joes and, playing like on streets. I wasn't really into computers. So you mentioned like even like the model. I mean, did you know that at the time?
Yeah, so it was Dell Pentium. I remember the phone because at that time, after that, the computer stopped working. I got the phone and I remember the phone. The phone is where everything started. So a couple of friends and myself, I went to STETS. And so that's St. Elizabeth Technical High School for those who need to know the acronym. And we started just playing around with the phone and we discovered mcommunity.biz. I don't know if anyone out there is familiar with that site. And you could make little WAP sites. So back then it was WAP. It was wireless markup language. So before HTML. And we started to play around. Granted, my grades suffered immensely because I wasn't paying attention in school. And then we found this Russian site called kmx.ru and wab.ru. And granted, we couldn't speak Russian. We just clicked everything and say, oh, this is how it works. And then we made little notes in our notebook, and then at school would compare notes and we'll build things and so forth. And so that really got me started into programming per se. I was curious still, but after that, I started to gravitate towards more technical subjects. And I was in 9th grade, I remember. So here in Jamaica, 9th grade, you're exposed to all subjects, so to speak. And you have to choose when you go to 10th grade because you get 8 to 10 subjects to choose. And so depending on where you choose, you end up in a certain class. I kind of stopped paying attention to IT for a while, but funny story, how I got into IT is kind of strange. So I fell in love with a girl. So I wanted to be in the same classes with her. If I went and did technical subjects, I couldn't be in the same classes with her. So I decided I'm going to do IT because I was familiar. I'm like, okay, but I wanted to be an architect. And so I decided I was going to do IT, and I chose the class at the time, Advanced IT, and that's programming. And I went in that class, Ed, and I kid you not, I sucked terribly. For an entire year, I couldn't do pseudocode. I could not understand pseudocode. It was so foreign to me. It wasn't like markup or anything like that. I couldn't understand any at all. And so I went home that summer and I just decided I'm going to do this. And I just sat down. At the time, I rented a laptop because my PC died couldn't do anything on that realistically. And I rented a laptop from a friend because he had no use for it. And I just sat down and I got on Borland C++, I think is Borland compiler, and I just started writing.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, how did you move from like not knowing anything to like, I'm gonna try and do this? Because usually people just give up and they're like, I know what, this is not for me.
Probably some OCD from my father. I hate losing for sure. And so, I forgot to mention, because in ninth grade, I met someone who had a phone store and he had internet. I didn't have internet. Up until this point, I don't have internet. So what I used to do is after school, I used to work in the phone store to get access to the internet. And I would, unfortunately, maybe I'll be locked up now, pirate music to sell so I could make some money so I could rent the laptop. And then I started using the laptop at the store and I would try and save web pages. I used to save web pages so I could read after when I got home because I had no internet. And that's how I learned actually. So I made a program, I don't remember exactly. And I remember that I could install it because I found a package that could build an installer. And then like after that, I excelled at it for sure. Fast forward now, I'm leaving high school. Parents want you to go to college. I'm like, I don't like college. I've never liked school. That's the truth. It's boring. There are so many things that you have to learn because you're required to learn. And I just wanted to do programming. I wanted to make things. I think I take after my dad in terms of the desire to build things because he was a carpenter and kind of tradesman and he liked to build things. It's just that I went digital. So I love to build things. And so I didn't see, I saved up, got my first laptop, which was a Studio 1640 Dell XPS.
My God, man, you know your stuff, man. I never know what my first laptop was. My first phone ever. Like I'm terrible with this.
I still have that laptop somewhere.
My God,
I kept it.
That's insane.
And I had that laptop for probably about 9 years. And so throughout college, a group of friends and I, and some from high school, we formed a company called Azure, and we did a bit of dev shop work. I went to front-end development, so JavaScript, HTML, and so forth. I was a pretty reasonable designer. I wasn't bad. And so we were building things. CSS3 just arrived on the scene. I was playing with animations. Chrome came out, changed the game forever for sure.
I don't know if that's just like maybe I'm giving out like my age here, but before even CSS3 and before Flash, there was that attempt from Microsoft with Silverlight.
Yeah, I remember Silverlight.
It was a big thing. And then I remember like people being hired to be evangelists of Silverlight. And then suddenly it all disappeared because everything changed.
It all disappeared with the advent of ECMAScript 5, which is JavaScript. That changed everything. Ajax changed everything with Google. I remember when Google did Ajax, XHR requests. So we built a bunch of websites, made some money that helped to take me through school. Then we graduated, tried and continue for a bit. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to do dev shop work. In reality, it's very difficult to do. Back then, it was very difficult to do dev shop work. There wasn't a tremendous amount of demand for websites because the island wasn't covered with internet like now. So why would a store want a website when no one has internet? You had mobile internet, but it wasn't that fantastic. It was until, funny, I remember these things. Claro came with 3G and then competition came up and we got 3G. So I didn't get internet at my house where I live, where I grew up until 2012.
Wow. And that was before 2012 when you started this dev shop?
During. So we started in 2011, last part of 2011, I remember. And I didn't get, and it was mobile internet. So I got on a plan that was unlimited, fair user policy. It wasn't really unlimited, but it was enough.
I can imagine. I mean, 2013, 12, I don't know. To have unlimited back then, it must have been like crazy. I don't know.
It was because of the competition. So Clara wanted to dominate the space. Eventually, Clara got acquired by Digicel, I believe. Yeah, Unlimited died.
I want to ask a question on that because you mentioned like obviously having like a dev shop back then. It's a challenge because there's adoption of internet, adoption of websites in general. I think maybe understanding of the actual need of a dev, because you probably like see websites back then, like I'm talking about like 12, 15 years ago. People look at websites, are like, okay, I don't even know who builds this kind of things, like they have this barrier of education, then they have a barrier of technology and barrier of infrastructure. And then if you fast forward to where we are today, it's the opposite, right? I mean, it's so spread out. Everyone has internet, has broadband. I mean, majority have broadband. And for maybe people in a more advanced, like if you think about like what tools we have today, it's mostly no code where, at least claim to be no code. I think there's always a need to be someone there like behind, to pilot that. But the competition is being like fiercely, like, it's crazy. Do you see a big difference from where you were back then to where you are now in terms of, okay, back then it was like maybe blue ocean because there was no competition, but also no infrastructure, where now it's red ocean, right? You have a lot of competition, but you have also a lot of alternatives. Is it better now, you feel like, for someone who's doing dev work, or is this like
100%.
Really?
100%. The barriers you mentioned, the technology barrier, the infrastructure barrier, the education barrier, just the awareness is on a whole different level. Because of COVID, I believe that accelerated tremendously. And so now you have an entirely new set of creators and consumers because they have access to the internet that weren't there before. So I think the digital economy will grow significantly here and throughout the region, throughout the Caribbean. It has really transformed over the years, for sure. I see my family members, having broadband at the house, high-speed internet. And I tell them all the time, you guys are so lucky.
Yeah. And tell me, like, you back then, like, I mean, you did your startup. It was a challenge at the beginning, but you did work in different startups from that period to where you are today, right? So was that like your thing? Like you loved building new things, or you just ended up like with friends and then building things? How was that like, working with startups for over a decade?
Lots of failures, lots of lessons learned. So after that company, because that was a registered company at the time, I believe, I got an opportunity to work with someone from overseas, and we did funny thing. It was document entry. So far from programming now, you have to pay the bills. I'm out of college, etc., etc. And so I started, it was Xylem, right? It's a Cisco platform, learning platform, I believe. I'm remembering it as I go along. And so Xylem was single source, multiple output. I'm starting to remember the terms, meaning that you would enter content and then it would generate multiple outputs. PDF, a online platform called Solomon, Word, PowerPoint, and I think that's it. I think they had video somewhere in there. So I got in with a friend, and then I got my other two friends because we are one group, I tend to do business with friends. And we got in. So we started playing around with this platform. So we had to enter, they had a special format. It was XML based, but they had a GUI and all of that. And you had to connect online and so forth. And so the guy's name was Derek Robinson. And I want to give a shout out to Derek, who gave us the opportunity, to be honest. Really grateful for that. Really changed my life. And so you had to enter these XML codes. So friends and I were like, we all wrote code. So I had a friend that he liked game dev, very brilliant. And I had another friend, he was training to be a doctor, but he could also write code. So he was in college to become a doctor. I don't know how he finds the time and the mental capacity. Very brilliant guy. We started to play around with the platform, and we kind of started to break the platform, because we were trying things. So we would apologize. No one knew what we was doing. But we figured out that we could convert the Word documents that they gave us directly to that format. So we found a library, OpenXML. We modified the Word document, and then we converted it to the XML. And that automated a whole lot of work for us. So we could do probably 80% of the work within an hour. So that changed everything. So this is around 2015, thereabout. So we started to make money because we're automating. So we're like, send us more work. And they're surprised. So I'm saying, can't get hourly pay for this. This is going to cap our earning potential. We need to figure out something. Maybe we need to build a platform so others can use it. So ideas start to bubble up like, hey, how can we maximize this opportunity? I called Derek and I spoke with him and said, this is what we can do. Derek was like really excited. He was like, been doing this for years. I never thought about this and so forth. So we started to share the tool and work with other people. But unfortunately at the time there was like layoffs and so forth. And so we got cut and that ended. So roughly around the same time now, I'm starting to look for jobs, have my GitHub profile up, had a few projects on there and so forth. And so I fixed the library on GitHub and I met John Stevenson. He was in crypto. Crypto was a thing at the time.
That was the beginning of crypto. Which year was that? 2016 or 15?
2016. Crypto was becoming more mainstream, so to speak. And I started hearing about Bitcoin and Ethereum, Litecoin and so forth. I fixed the library for him and he was very grateful because it was a simple problem, but no one knew what was the problem. But I had experienced that problem before. So he gave me the opportunity to come and work with his...
I thought you were going to say he give you like 100 Bitcoin and now you're like a millionaire. Oh man, come on.
he didn't give me 100 Bitcoin. Bitcoin was around 8,000 at the time. $8,000. I remember because I had a Bittrex account. I was trying.
I had a Bittrex account. They closed down, didn't they?
Yeah, I
think I lost some cash there.
Yeah. And so John gave me the opportunity. He wasn't a trader or anything. He traded, but his company was based in Asia. I don't remember where, but he had this big warehouse mining servers. So I had to write a backend in JS. Granted, I didn't write backend. I was always a front-end person, but I had to learn. So I wrote the backend in JS using Express, and it was supposed to connect to something called Prometheus, which was to monitor the miners, something of the sort. That's a lot of things I didn't know, but I had to learn. So I did that and he paid me. And at the time, my laptop was falling apart. But unfortunately, the crypto market went into a slump and I was let go again. John is like, unfortunately, we're downsizing. So I took that $1,700. My best friend was in America. He bought a laptop because I told him to buy the laptop. And he brought it here for me and I got the laptop. And that was a Dell XPS.
That one I remember actually, the XPS. It was a pretty cool looking laptop.
Yes, the thin bezels.
Yeah. So you've been doing like a lot of this stuff. I mean, you've learned a lot. And I mean, it's unfortunate that this happens all the time when like there's either a layoff or change in plans. And then, I mean, there's just so much you can control, right? Right. But then you're like, move, fast forward to where you are today, like you're working with Giftme. Were you part of the founding team? How did you get to start working with Giftme? And tell me a little bit about what does it do?
What happened was we were a part of another startup. And then my other friend, he went into America. He saw a bunch of gift cards on the stand, like in Walmart. And he said, there's nothing like this in Jamaica. And he's saying, we couldn't do this physically. So the next best case is digital.
Why did he think like he couldn't do it physically? Is there a challenge?
Cost. It just wouldn't make sense at all. So he said digital. This is early 2021. COVID is...
It's middle of pandemic, yeah.
Right. And so he got back to Jamaica, had one of our other friends pick him up and he discussed the idea with him. Then he called me and another friend and that's how we got started. And so the first version was a SaaS. A merchant would sign up, pay a fee, then they would create their gift cards and they would have like a little page, a hosted page that they could embed in their website or just a hosted link and they would direct people to that page to buy gift cards. Unfortunately, that wasn't going too well. So we had to pivot to a marketplace kind of setup. So we kind of realized that we started to get on these brands, but they're operating individually. So we needed to aggregate the brand equity. So a marketplace would solve that problem. So we built out our first marketplace and that started to gain way more traction than the individual hosted page. And we retired that. We retired the subscription. We moved entirely to a commission-based kind of setup, a service fee. And that's how we started. Since then, we have a number of products in the background or features, such as allowing merchants to create their own digital loyalty. And so most of the times, well, stateside or Europe side, you have companies like 5 Star and so forth that did digital loyalty. So we wanted to do the same thing here. And so we wrote out a loyalty module so a few merchants could use that service along with selling their gift cards, and we did some stuff with coupons and so forth. But we're in the middle of revamping all of that right now because, it's a startup. It's trying to find product market fit, trying to do all of that is an experiment. I think we've figured out the gift card model, sure. The rest of it we're revamping, and we're very excited. Come probably third quarter of this year, a lot of new things will be coming out. And we just focus on building tools for the merchants because I think that's the market that's underserved, giving them online exposure here because a lot of merchants don't have a website. There's still that problem. And to facilitate payments and so forth, it's quite difficult. It's quite challenging. And that's how I came across persona fraud,
Interesting. Yeah. Tell me more about it.
So we took the decision early on because we had online experience and we had a bit of e-commerce experience as a group to leverage Stripe. Stripe is one of the top companies in the world in terms of online payments. But Stripe had a tool called Radar and chargeback protection, So we were aware of credit card fraud. We weren't oblivious. So we took that decision deliberately to set up a Stripe account and use Stripe as our payment processor because of the fraud tools that it provides. And so we're solving a very interesting problem. We laugh about this now, but at the time, it gave us a nightmare. Like if you're committing credit card fraud, you can almost instantly move the money from the card to a gift card that you can use here. It's a very peculiar problem that we're solving. The bad actors in the system, they realize this and then fraud started going up, despite having chargeback protection and radar. And so we're searching for solutions, trying to find things. We looked at digital KYC for sure, but unfortunately, not everyone would support OID. And so we went around and I saw a persona on a TechCrunch article. And so I reached out and we just tried it and can't complain. It's a fantastic tool. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Granted, we use other tools also in conjunction, Xeon. That has really helped significantly on the back end now in terms of friendly fraud charge flow. So we have a full stack. So Stripe, Xeon, Persona, charge flow. So that's how we connected everything. And so far, even when a bad actor gets through, when he gets the Persona, man, it stops him right there. Dynamic friction.
Amazing.
So not everyone would be required to do a Persona, but if all the tools say, all the signals say you're high risk, then Persona request is triggered.
That's so good to hear, man. I mean, I didn't even pay you to say that.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I'm a satisfied customer for sure.
That's good, man. I mean, it's good to hear that. And so it's quite an interesting one because now that you're saying that, I'm like, of course. I mean, it's an opportunity for fraudulent transactions to happen through a gift card, and it's, as you think about it, like, oh my god, yeah. And I'm glad to hear that you found Persona, but also with like the full stack that you have, things seems to be moving like to the right place now. And you mentioned obviously a lot of things that are probably happening in Q3 now that you guys are excited about. Is there anything that you feel, that you personally feel super excited like yourself from like the challenges that you have to solve with the technology or things that you're building now that maybe you can share, like something that's like maybe a sneak peek of like, here's the kind of things we're thinking about or things that we care to and that we plan to release soon or plan to, think about or focus on in the future?
Sure. So we just recently launched, partnered with our merchants who continue to support us. Really grateful for their support. They took a risk with us. We were new. This is entirely new where I'm from. Common stateside, common in Europe. They took a chance with us. I hope we've at least matched or exceeded their expectations. And so we're very grateful. So we've partnered with our merchants now to offer discounts to employees of companies. So Giftme does have a retail site where you and I or whomever can go and buy gift cards for the friends and family. But we also have a corporate portal where companies can now purchase gift cards for for their employees, for their customers, so on, in bulk. So they tend to be larger quantity orders. And so we have partnered with our merchants and our corporates now to ensure to offer exclusive discounts to these employees. And so that has been released probably about 3 or 4 weeks now. And we're seeing some traction right there, Brands offer up to 15-20% on discounts, and we're seeing an uptick. They're very excited about that. Also coming soon will be revamping, because we have this already, the loyalty program. So we learn in the market, the challenges of the merchants, and we're iterating. And so we'll be revamping our loyalty program. So pretty soon you'll be able to get points when you use your gift cards and so forth. And you're getting discounts as an employee right now, because we've partnered with the other stakeholders, and you'll be getting deals pretty soon. So I like to say that, Giftme is to borrow from Walmart, the everyday savings app.
Yeah, man.
We're just trying to add value to all the stakeholders involved, and we see a lot of opportunities here. There are a lot of technical challenges, of course. We don't have open banking. That's for one. And so everything is through credit card processing, and that can be expensive. And, fraud is another expense and so forth. So we're trying to find a way how we can kind of leverage the legacy systems that are in place to facilitate transactions, because what we are essentially is a distributor. We work on behalf of these merchants. We give them online exposure, we give them corporate exposure, retail exposure. And so we're trying to, and we're not fully there yet, but we're pretty close to something. So we'll speak more on that in the coming months. But it has been a challenge. We say this internally, but I guess I'll say it now on this podcast. You kind of have to somehow figure out how to engineer the environment for your survival. And that's a difficult task. You're venturing off on a path that no one has walked before. And so along the way, you have to pay attention. I will say that. That's the thing. You have to pay attention. You have to keep looking, because there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns and so forth. As we walk on this journey, we've encountered a whole lot of unknowns, but it has been fun.
I love that, man. There's one thing that I learned. I mean, it's one of those things that but you don't have it clearly, articulated until someone says it, and you're like, yes, of course. So a lot of people think that if you create something simple, it would be, easy for people to get started, but then you essentially create a lot of opportunities for people to just copycat you. And when you create something that's rather complex, but it makes it feel simple for someone who's consuming or using it, that's the golden thing, because that's when you have the Dropboxes of the world, Zoom and many big companies that makes it feel so seamless, but then it's such a complex system behind. And I think you guys are getting that, because what you're saying now is it's complex. You're figuring this out in a market that's not, yet, mature for all of this. You're probably having to figure things out and create the rules yourselves, and then, okay, did we do this right or not, and figure as you go. But as you're navigating through this, and if you make it super simple for someone who to just adopt, that's your goal, right? Because that's essentially it's hard for someone to try and copy you. It's too late, for someone to try and copy you. You'll be way ahead. So the more you make it simple for someone who's trying to use, but rather complex things you're solving internally, so that you go through regulation, go through complex systems, integrations, fraud prevention, all of that stuff. They have to navigate all of that, and you'll be years ahead. So it's great. I mean, it's great that you're doing this. That's super exciting.
We as software developers, we take on the complexity for the user. That's our job. So the simpler something seems, it's probably the background, the operations, what's happening is probably very complex, And I think one of the challenges in terms of the legacy systems that are here is reconciliation. That one is extremely challenging. And we find that as we built out this product more and more, there are numerous edge cases. So if you look on the surface, as you say, and you have a copycat, they're going to be in for a surprise for sure. I'm pretty sure I've encountered an edge case almost every day.
I love hearing that, and I'm very keen to really know what's going to happen next. So, I mean, we're part of the sim community. So, actually, for people who are not there, if they want to join the Persona community, it's good to have people like you who are trying to figure things out, like from scratch. And you're always welcome to ask us questions, to ask members questions. I hope more people being enjoying and talking and sharing more information. I think this is like it's built over time, right? It can just do that overnight. So it's great to have that kind of thing happening, because it's good for us, it's good for you. If everyone learns something on that. So yeah, man, it's great. And kind of final question, but before we just wrap this, if people want to find you or find Giftme, is there any better channel or a channel that you like to use that people can maybe reach out to, or maybe either find more about Giftme or find more about Rojay?
LinkedIn is probably the best channel. You search Rojay Simpson, or you just search for Giftme, and I will be there. In terms of Giftme, to use our service, shopgiftme.com, or if you're a corporate, you can use giftmehub.com. And you can probably find us on Instagram.
Yeah, that's great. I'll make sure to leave the links in the comments below so people can follow you on LinkedIn. Make sure that they go into Shop Giftme and check out what's going on there. So that's great. Look, thank you so much, Rojay, for your time. Really appreciate I know you're super busy, so thanks for spending some time here with me. I hope this was a good conversation, a good chat. It's always good to hear different stories, get to know you a little bit better, and I hope people be getting to know you a little bit better now.
Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the great work that you've been doing in the Persona community and just the larger Persona platform. It's solving a very difficult problem, and I foresee that problem will grow. To put it politely, it will definitely grow. So for those out there, if you're looking for a KYC program, Ed has not paid me, I swear. You guys should check out Persona. They offer a generous startup, because we are a startup, and startups have financial challenges at times. So if you guys are out there, make sure you check out Persona if you're looking for a KYC solution. Excellent documentation, excellent staff. Couldn't ask for a better partner.
Oh man, thanks for this. I mean, seriously, even if it was scripted, I'll be like, this is the best sales pitch I ever got. So thanks for that. Yeah,
no problem.
Really appreciate it, man. Yeah, thank you so much. Stay well. Don't go crazy with a lot of work. And it's getting late there. It's late for us here as well. But yeah, man, thanks a lot. Great having you here in the podcast. So, man.
All right, take care. Bye.
And if you like this episode, make sure that you follow us. Go to withpersona.com/community. Join us there. It'd be pretty cool to have you there. And if you're a founder, if you're building something interesting, if you're a product manager, it's a place for you. We're there to help. We're there to connect, to share some of the learnings we have and learn from you. Why not? So yeah, I'll see you there.